Hi everyone! As a last thing before I take the show down, I would love to give you a little video tour. So we are here in the National Museum of Natural History and Science in Lisbon. This is a tunnel forest exhibition. This is the show that I composed together that is embracing my work from 2018 until now and up to this day, and it tells the story of my slow evolution of working with the forest and with the ecology, which actually started in Portugal, which began with my move in 2017, and which is inspired by or instigated by the ecological situation in Portugal, and not only with the lack of natural biodiverse forest, the presence of monocultures, the fires, and general disappearance of biodiversity. So what we see here is these artworks in the frames. They are the first cycle that I created. I worked in Goiás in Portugal, in the area that suffered fires in 2017, and I worked there for 1.5 months with the communities, listening to their stories that they have with their forests, trying to understand the roots of the current situation and the relationships that we have with forest ecology and with forest as a cultural space. So this artwork, for example, that is a 4-piece work, is based on a poem. I plant the word of people, with the blood of the tree of forest. And here you have calligraphy running down from top to bottom, repeated over and over again, the whole poem, written on this paper from abandoned paper factory in Goiás that I found when I was working in the art residency. All these artworks in the frames created with water from the local stream and Japanese ink. I work a lot with calligraphy. This is my principal method. And sometimes I create artworks that are abstract, like this one, and sometimes they're based on actual poems. So this artwork is based on a Google map of the area where I was working and searching for this kind of invisible mythological forest, which I actually did find, which turned out to be abandoned land from a family after agriculture was abandoned there. And it was around the area of a beautiful stream and beautiful chapel that stood on top of the forest, and many people told me that it seems like it was already a magical forest, kind of a little sacred space. Here you have the book. It's a handmade book made in 6 copies only. It's made on the paper from the same paper factory. There is a name of the company, Companhia de Papel de Goiás, and all this paper that was donated to me as I worked there, I used to make 6 books. And inside the book you have calligraphy, and you have all the poems, about 7 different poems, written or typed on a machine without ink, so you can only read them if you put the pages against the light. And here you have the cover, and you have one inside page. And this book you can find in the British Library and the Gulbenkian Art Library. So one is in London and another copy is in Lisbon. From the same series, there are 2 artworks here, Casa e Vida. So this reflects the work that I did with communities during the film. When I took interviews with people, I asked them, what is the forest for you in 1 word? And so they gave me this 1 word. One is casa, another one vida. It's a home and life, house and life, and there are others like paz, verde, saudade, and so on. So it seems like a forest always has this important cultural space in people's lives. And these 4 artworks, they're based on the same poem that reflects the presence of water in the forest. So it's written top to bottom, right to left, in red and black ink. Red ink reflects the presence of fire in the landscape. From this, we go to another book here in the window. This is the book from 2019, and I worked with community in Coruș during the Biennale of Coruș in 2019, developing the vision for what then became the idea of Eternal Forest Sanctuary, with a proposal to create a protected forest space and create it through art and community. So this book is basically an invitation to the community of Coruș to create one of the sanctuaries there. And here you have a page with calligraphy, and behind it you have, shining through the page, with poetry. In the drawers of the exhibition you have various pages from this book, from the second copy that's disassembled, so you can see a little bit inside the book. There are unique poetry pieces, hand-drawn, and the poetry that accompanies them in Portuguese and in English. Since I'm living in Portugal, I write everything in 2 languages, and sometimes, and that book is an example, I also use Russian language, which is my native language. So sometimes poems are written first in English, or in Russian, or in Portuguese, and then they are translated. In the middle of this gallery, this laboratory, in the hut, how they call it, in scientific terms, this is laboratory for chemistry. You have a scroll, the scroll of Eternal Forest Manifesto. This is a 22-meter piece, and this is the scroll that I created when I wrote Eternal Forest Manifesto during the same year, 2019. It's written in English and Portuguese respectively, in black and red ink, and I read it for the circle of communities, for the circle of people in the forest. This piece is exhibition only. However, next to it you see a small manifesto. It's a handheld. I call it heart piece because it's close to my heart always. And as you can see, it's not so abstract. You can trace all the letters here. Anybody can read it. In this case, it's usually me reading it. And you also have the English and the Portuguese version here. So if I create a performance or a ceremony in the forest somewhere next to you, I'll be reading this. I've read it already many, many times. Eternal Forest Manifesto is also translated in French and will be translated in Spanish soon, because everywhere where eternal forests appear, there will be a version of manifesto in own language. And so now we are coming to this installation called the Council of Seeds, in the middle of the gallery on the floor. This is a site-specific work that I created here in the museum and the botanical garden. And the idea for this work comes from necessity to listen to the seeds and the trees and to hear their own messages and their stories, for us to be able to coexist in peace with the forest, with the natural world. Here you already see installation that has been kind of kicked around. The seeds have been kicked around by many, many, many feet who came through here. But at the beginning it was like an organized wave, and the circle at the top crowning the wave with the 5 seeds that I selected. And I wrote 5 poems, and here you see example of that visual poem. And this one is Bunya Time. It's about, and written in the voice of Bunya tree and bunya seed, the sacred tree in Australia, in Queensland. And it's about the time of bunya, the festival of bunya, which happens in Australia, where many tribes come together to celebrate the harvest, to be together, to get married, to fight each other, to make peace ceremonies, and to spread the seeds across, to take them to different locations. So every visual poem is all written down in this light gray ink with just a couple of words written in large scale in black. And on the other side, back to back, we have an artwork that is called Marriage of Ginkgo. So ginkgo trees, if you know or not, they are female and male trees separately. And the message of the ginkgo tree was, I want to be planted in a natural way. Female and male tree must be planted together next to each other. And here you have her little signature next to my fingerprint, the ginkgo leaf. And so then the performance continues out into the botanical garden. It will be available as an audio guide for anybody who goes and scans the QR code. You can go to the Botanical Garden of Lisbon and you can enjoy the performance in your own way. And here I'd love to share with you all your reflections of all the people who came to the performance. So after the performance is finished, after this contemplative journey with the seeds and trees are coming to an end, I usually offer people a chance to sit in silence with a tree, with a seed, and reflect and write their own message, their own impression with this beautiful black walnut ink that I also created from the black walnut seed here that I found in the botanical garden. This performance, although site-specific, will now continue in other locations, in parks and forests, in Portugal and around the world. So it becomes kind of biodiversity reflection, a reflection on our culture and how we relate to what's at our feet, always there, always present. And just as a last bit, I want to show you the book. This is the book that just been published, and now I'm running second edition, second print. And in the book you have photographs from the performances, you have photographs of the artworks and of the installation, you have poetry written in the voice of the seeds, you have photos of the seeds, you also have texts that are written by the curator of the exhibition, Sofia Marçal, in English and in Portuguese. You have an interview between myself and Patricia Lee Watts, the founder of Eco Art Space platform, and my text that I wrote for The Empty Square, which reflects on the philosophy of eternal forest as an ongoing project and why we need to be creating protected forest sanctuaries, and what does it mean for our culture, for continuation of life, for the communities, for the health and well-being of ourselves and the whole ecosystem that we are part of. Here we are. So I hope you enjoy the show, and thanks so much for watching.